Trying to draw attention to eating disorders. Eating disorders, man, just about every family, everybody listening has had someone in their life where it's been a challenge, where it's been a problem. And Lisa Radzak is with us from a nonprofit called WithAll. Lisa, it's good to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so glad to be with you two.
Tell me, first of all, and we'll get to how Jessie Diggins is partnering with you guys, but tell me what WithAll is.
Sure. We're a not-for-profit. We're based here in the Twin Cities and have a lot of engaged and supportive volunteers and supporters here in the Twin Cities. But we serve a national audience. In fact, sometimes an international audience with our two separate programs. One is about helping adults help young people as they're growing, learn how to feel good in your body and with food, so that we can prevent things like eating disorders from developing in the first place. And our other program is for folks that are dealing with an eating disorder but have financial need while they're in treatment working to recover. We give grants for folks that are in that situation and really help keep them on the path to recovery so they can kind of get back to life. So those are two different areas.
Talk to me about the Jessie Diggins connection and why you guys are partnering up.
Yeah, well, Jessie, right away when she came out in 2018 to sort of share with the world, and to be clear, this is part of why so many of us have Jessie as she's a hero to many of us. She came out in 2018 to share with the world when she didn't have to, her experience battling an eating disorder and just put a face on it in ways that no one had before. And continued to talk about it and name the realities of what it means to have an eating disorder as she's on, the gold medal podium and as she's winning race after race and other trophies. So just so generously sharing that spotlight with so many of us who have had eating disorders or have them.
It's pretty vulnerable in that where you're seen in this position of strength. You're in this hyper-competitive athletic world, and to say, you know what, I have been struggling.
When most people, for very good human reasons, would keep that to themselves, to protect a brand, to survive, all the good reasons you can't judge someone for.
For sure,
but
totally
to
understandable.
To be that vulnerable,
right?
And put her brand out there like that, it's been just incredible, and she's continued to share and be so open and vulnerable about how hard it is to have an eating disorder, frankly.
How big of a problem is this in youth sports?
Well, it's to be sure it's a problem everywhere. There's a greater prevalence for athletes. There's a greater prevalence with eating disorders for athletes, for sure. Youth, at WithAll, we're always thinking about young people, including young athletes, because some of these earliest issues that form into an eating disorder start so early. So early. We start to identify ourselves as having a body different than others at like 18 months, right? And so how we as adults are talking about body and food around kids is so much more impactful than most of us realize. It really is setting a kid up to sort of be at odds with their body or comfortable and at home in their body. And so that plays into youth sports, right? Because as athletes, and I happen to be an athlete myself, we are our body so aggressively as athletes, right? Our body is our tool. And how we talk about bodies in sports and how we talk about fueling in sports. These things with young people can become particularly important as we think about these things and what direction we want to take kids with those two different things.
I'm going to get a little honest because I have an eating disorder and I'm actually actively in treatment for it right now. And I was a former athlete as well. And that those signs early on are certainly there. And once your career ends, they don't really give you a booklet on how to deal with all of these leftovers. There's a lot of different leftovers. But one thing that comes up in my mind a lot is about optimization and how there's like this pull, at least just to do the right thing with the least amount of energy possible. Can you speak to that in terms of what we see in kids and how those attitudes are kind of shaped by the culture, by that striving to be the best? Because I think we don't realize how much we truly learn from those outside messages and how a lot of times they're incentivized.
Yeah, and making sure, first off, thanks for sharing, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Second off, You mean when we're pushing kids like win at all costs, and it's about the win, and it's about performing your best, and here's how we have to do that, and putting the intense pressure with particular foods, particular exercise routine. Is that what you're talking about?
I think so. There's like a element of like dehumanization where you only gravitate towards what's best for you instead of just being what is or what's available to you.
Mm-hmm. Or you mean in like if a coach or a person you look up to in sport is like this is the thing, without any reflection on, okay, I'm talking to Lindsay, the person, a unique individual, what might be best for her, instead of the headline simple fixes or the easy, like, oh, it's got to be, I go to like 4,000 milligrams of protein, no matter
Right.
what, Lindsay.
It's so hyper specific so early.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing I always think about as a parent is, and I say this to everybody, sometimes it's not always clear to me sort of what we're all racing towards, where we're pushing our kids towards. You know, sometimes I think we lose sight of really it's life that we're doing here, right? Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes we think like if we do just the right club, or we do just the right training regime, or we do just the right, if I as a parent do that or a coach do that, it's going to give my kid a chance that they otherwise won't have. So that's why we have to follow all these rules just so. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
I think so. I just think that like it creates this mindset that you have the control, and if you don't reach it, it's something that you've done wrong or something that you didn't do that to the degree that was necessary.
Right. And I'm sure you've had this experience too when you talk with, like I talked with Jessie Diggins' mom one time, or I've talked with, Division I athletes. I'm sorry, I don't know what your experience was, but it's so funny to me because when you're talking to folks who have had that experience with their youth, it's so very clear, very obviously when you have an Olympian on your hand. When you're talking about what was it like, when Jessie was in 8th grade, where I think that was so helpful to me as a parent because it takes a whole lot of pressure off that idea of, well, wait, just get her in the right, 2-week weightlifting class, right? It's like that's not what makes these kids are just wired differently, and they need additional support around that. And I think that's something a lot of us maybe don't have insight into is how different some of these athletes are genetically from the get-go.
Well,
right?
one of the stats on your website talks about how eating disorders impact young athletes at the same rates as concussions.
Yeah,
think about that. That it's
That's
three times more likely for athletes to develop an eating disorder than non-athletes. It's a part of eating disorders that I think a lot of us, especially parents and coaches, are still stuck in this like mentality that it's like the Instagram model wannabe type situation that an eating disorder is, where it may well be your youth hockey player or your youth soccer player or gymnast or wrestler or whatever.
Yeah. And what I always say to folks that I think this is the statistic. Sometimes statistics aren't helpful. At least 94% of the time, you won't be able to tell the person has the eating disorder by looking at them.
Mm-hmm.
The number of people that have eating disorders that are actively suffering, where they look not only fine, but maybe one of the healthiest, happy people you know. We think it's, some of us were raised with the image of like Karen Carpenter, and then some of us, we had like Demi Lovato. So we have these ideas of this is what it means to be sick with an eating disorder. And yes, there's some of that, but it's so rare compared to the rest of us and our experience with an eating disorder, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things, and you can there's so much information at WithAll, just WITHALL.org. And you guys have free training programs for coaches and so really talking about this, but the partnership with Jessie Diggins is really designed to, there's a fund that you've created, right? The Jessie Diggins Recovery Fund that just launched today, right?
Just launched today because it was going to launch over the Olympics, but we learned there's all these
a lot of rules,
terrifying rules the Olympics had, so we couldn't launch it over the Olympics. But here's the cool part that a lot of people don't realize unless you're a fan, like many of us are, I guess. They keep going, right, for their World Cup season. So Jessie has 4 more weeks of racing, which is, to me, just mind-boggling after you watch what they do in the Olympics. Now they keep going. So she has 9 more races left here from now till March 24th, 5th. And then that will be the end of her professional racing career. So we want to send her off with this, just to say, yes, all the medals and the awards and gosh, she's earned them all, right?
Yep.
But the thing that gets overshadowed by that is this thing she's done for us who have had or have an eating disorder, to give this sort of brave dignity to it that just most of us hadn't seen that before. We have shirts on our website, Brave, Kind, and Fierce, and it's Team Diggins on the back. There's other, she inspires the heck out of so many of us, and just want to show her how much we appreciate that. And she even said it really means a lot to her that we're doing this, and she donated to the campaign yesterday.
Cool.
To give at least 26 people this recovery support grant that we talked about in her name, and helping those folks stay in treatment and stay on the path to recovery. So that's the goal of the campaign. And
26 grants for people seeking eating disorder treatment is the goal. $13,000 for the Jessie Diggins Recovery Fund. Yes. It's right on the homepage, withall.org. Dig deep for Diggins. Yep. I just think it's terrific. And it's really important for people to, I think parents and coaches, you worry so much about saying the wrong thing. And saying the wrong thing is not great, but saying nothing is worse. And so...
Except for when someone has an eating disorder. This is the one thing I wanted to say about sometimes with food and body and not knowing what to say about what's supportive and what's not. The best thing is to say nothing.
To say nothing in that scenario,
but if you're
sure.
When you're concerned,
the concerned was what I was talking about, for
yeah.
sure.
And you were saying that, yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Totally agree
absolutely.
with that. Really glad you came in. Love the effort.
Thank
Lisa
you.
Radzak, WithAll, and Dig Deep for Diggins. Very good.
Thank you, Jason and Lindsay, so much.